Last night's SmackDown was supposed to show dominance, but instead it left fans talking about one thing no superstar wants attached to their name. Another botched finish. From chaos in the women's title match to shocking returns and everything else in between, this episode had people buzzing for all the wrong reasons. Let's break down everything that happened. Paul Heyman would come out to open the show and he would play the crowd. He would ask them what they want to talk about. Is it Roman Reigns? Is it Braun Breaker? Or is it the conspiracy around Brock Lesnar? Cody Rhodes would cut him off as he would come out and he would talk about how Heyman is one of the best and smartest men in the business. But he's someone you just can't figure out. He wants to know what Paul Heyman is he talking to right here. Is he talking to the Oracle? Is he talking to the Wise Man? Or is he talking to the Advocate? Paul Heyman would reply to him by simply saying he is talking to the GOAT. You can't really argue that. He would then say that Brock being here means Cody is in danger. However, Brock is not here tonight. That doesn't mean that Cody is not in danger. Because here comes B&B security. Cody would tell Braun to not trust Heyman because Heyman always stabs everyone in the back. Whoever you think of, he has stabbed them in the back at one point or another. Braun is next on the chopping block. Braun wouldn't take him too seriously and they would start fighting. Cody would actually hold his own, but he would get overwhelmed by numbers before Randy Orton would come out with the save. It was a perfectly good segment, nothing too special, just kind of setting up King of the Ring, although I thought the way this was going to go is Seth Rollins not wanting anyone to touch Cody Rhodes and him wanting to beat Cody on his own. That might be something they talk about on Raw, but we'll see. Next up we would have the Street Profits backstage. They would cut a promo telling everyone that they're fine now. I really hope today is just the calm before the storm, but we'll get to see that because they would have a #1 contenders match for the tag team championships against Melo Don Miz, and it was a pretty good match. Melo would at one point go for the nothing but net to finish the match, but Miz would tag himself in trying to steal all of the glory. Miz would get pinned and Melo would be able to break the pin, but he didn't want to. I can't wait for the feud between Miz and Melo because Melo could be a really good babyface coming up. I'm really excited for whatever this storyline has in store. Next match would be Julia and Kiana James versus B-Fab and Michin, and it was an okay match. I'm just glad Julia is on TV. She would pin B-Fab and that would be kind of the end of the story for now. For now, I really hope this story develops more and more over a couple of weeks. Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss are then confronted by Zol Ruka, who would want to go for the championships. Charlotte would tell them, you have to earn a chance at a title. Zarya would call her out on this. She would say that that's generous coming from Charlotte Flair because, as we all know, Charlotte Flair just comes out of nowhere and wins the title match, however you want to call it. Saul would actually then get mad at Zarya, they would start arguing, and Alexa Bliss would step up for Charlotte Flair, and she would tell him to stand in line. These ally inconveniences, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, are making one of the greatest stories in professional wrestling right now, and I can't wait to see how much further it develops. Then we would have a depressed Drew McIntyre segment. Drew is clearly depressed coming in here. He would come out with his leg in a cast. He would complain about everything. He would complain about the referee, which, I mean, honestly, a valid point. I hate when referees get themselves involved too much in everything. But then he would be interrupted by Nick Aldis, who would basically tell him to shut the hell up. And he would tell him to stop complaining about corruption. And he would say that he just isn't going to get a rematch. He had his shot, that's it. Then Jacob Fatu would come out. He would steal the mic out of Drew's hands and he would tell him to stop bitching. Drew tells him to shut the hell up, he's basically still a nobody. Jacob Fatu would steal the mic from him again, but he would get sent a kiss from Glasgow. They would brawl, and Jacob is left standing tall. Clearly, this is a feud that's going to be happening for the next couple of weeks. I'm not mad. I'm really excited to see these two in the ring. Hopefully we get a bigger storyline than just, oh, I don't like you, oh, I don't like you, and that's it. Hopefully there's more layers to this, because I know there could be. Sami and Dragon Lee would then be talking backstage. Sami would thank Dragon Lee for the great match they had last week, but who's going to be his challenger now? Well, the challenger is Javon Evans from NXT. Now, if you guys don't watch NXT, first off, you should. This is one of the greatest eras to become a fan of NXT, especially with the TNA invasion that's gonna be happening right now. I'm really excited for everything that's going on in there. And Javon is probably the biggest talent, maybe aside from Obafemi currently in NXT, because this kid is, what, like 20 at most, I think? Actually, let me Google that real quick. Okay, so he's 21, but he's extremely good in the ring, and at that age, there's only room to grow from here. And last match, he showed his greatness. Him and Sami Zayn worked extremely well together. The crowd was chanting, "This is awesome." And at one point, Sami would kick out of the OG cutter, and the crowd was so invested in this story that they would start chanting, "Ref, you suck." I absolutely loved it. Sami would hit a Helluva kick, followed by a Blue Thunder Bomb to win the match. But after the match, the crowd was not against Sami, and that's what I'm loving to see during this US title reign, because he's fighting week in, week out, and people before his reign were talking about how he's washed, how he needs to change character, how this just doesn't work. But just with his in-ring work, he's showing why he's so great. He's showing why he deserves the appreciation he gets. And after this match, people were still excited. Of course, would Javon Evans winning be a huge pop? Yes. But Javon Evans is still a little bit away from becoming a main roster superstar, so it's good for him to stay in NXT for a couple of weeks, a couple of months more. Then we will get a backstage segment between Damian Priest and Kit Wilson, and I love this new Kit Wilson character. He's just a guy who's talking about toxic masculinity, and that's it. He would accuse Damian of being toxic again, and he would tell him that the pain he feels right now is centuries and centuries worth of pain, and that Damian Priest is the one continuing that cycle. But he would get really scared of Damian Priest, he would fall through a wall, and then Damian Priest would turn around and he would be confronted by, yet again, Aleister Black, who would hit him with a black mass, and he would just stand over him. He would tell him a couple of words and leave. Absolutely love this segment. As you guys know, I really love Damian Priest and Aleister Black, and their feud seems to be really good. I just hope it gets a really good final match to end it, maybe even in a steel cage, maybe even in a Hell in a Cell. I don't think that's going to happen, but a steel cage, I wouldn't mind. I absolutely wouldn't mind. And then we would get our main event, Tiffany Stratton versus Nia Jax versus Jade Cargill. And it was actually a pretty good match leading into the finish. It was completely fine, nothing too special. Even the crowd chanted at one point, "This is awesome." And Tiffany obviously isn't injured, despite the reports. She might have been slightly injured, but the reports were saying that she was injured enough to have to drop the title and everything. That didn't happen, obviously. And Cargill got a cut, looking like a real badass. But then I think the ending of the match was kind of rushed because of that. I'm not certain, but that's just what I think. And Tiffany Stratton would at one point cover Nia Jax, who would forget to kick out, and the ref would stop the count despite Nia clearly not kicking out. Clearly this was a huge botch, because Nia would then kick out about 3 seconds later. I'm not even kidding. It had to be a couple of seconds later that she kicked out. Oh, that sucked. That looked so bad. That looked really bad. And I just can't. It must have been some miscommunication between her and the ref, but hey, I'm glad that the queen of the botches is finally back. Tiffany Stratton would then hit a prettiest moonsault ever to win the match, to retain the title. But that botch, man, that botch, it really brings back memories of prime Nia Jax and botching all the time. I love it, I love it. I can't wait to see what the Great One thinks about this. Stephanie would come out to close the show and she would face off against Tiffany Stratton. Although this wasn't the greatest show, I wouldn't say it was bad. I would say it was kind of okay, but this week's Raw was much better. And if you want to see me talk about that, click right here.